Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of The Beam on Channels Television. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the federal government has since begun the gradual easing of the lockdown imposed as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. However, it made a U-turn on one of its decisions, the cancellation of the reopening of schools and examinations for graduating students, which has drawn a lot of ire. That's our focus on the program today, but let's first see what made the social media trends in the past week.
The acting chairman of the EFCC, Ibrahim Magu, became the talk of the town after he was arrested and questioned for alleged financial crimes committed under his watch. This has led to the creation of memes, cartoons drawn, and phrases such as "when the hunter becomes the hunted" being thrown around. Manchester City fans took over the social cyberspace to celebrate the lifting of a ban imposed on the club by UEFA. They expressed joy as the team will now be allowed to play in next season's Champions League when they pay the €10 million fine given by the governing body.
Well, there you go. Those were the trends in the past week, but you can be a part of the conversation from wherever you are around the world. Just tweet at us at the hashtag. First of all, the Twitter handle at Channels TV, at Channels Beam, at Victor_MBIDI, and also use the hashtags at Channels Beam and hashtag Schools Resumption. But joining us to look at today's topic, we have with us here in the Lagos studio Isaac Abraham. He is an environmental engineer and a health, safety, security, and environment professional by training, a blogger, a public speaker, socioeconomic and political commentator. He writes on a wide range of topics ranging from philosophy to politics. We also have with us in the Lagos studio Ogenekefe Eto. He is a brand strategist, a digital creator and content developer who currently serves as the operations manager of Save Africa's Future Leaders Initiative, a youth-led initiative that focuses on equipping teenagers and youths socially and intellectually to be active citizens and productive leaders in their communities. Well, it's a pleasure to have you both on the program today. Of course. We also have joining us via Skype, we have Victor Bamishaye. He is a Nigerian medical doctor, an author, and socio-political analyst who is dedicated to a life of service that will positively transform both local and global paradigms. He joins us from Lodz in Poland. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today. All right, we also have joining us Musa Ishaya. He is an engineer, an entrepreneur, administrator, and community group leader. He is the administrator of Come to Adamawa Foundation and Facebook group. It's a pleasure to also have you on the program. You join us from Yola, the Adamawa state capital. All right, let's get this conversation started. Isaac kickstarted this conversation for us. There's been a lot of back and forth as to the decision by the federal government to close schools first and also say that the private or government schools will not be part of, the WAEC examinations. How did you take that message?
Okay, first of all, I think there's trouble in paradise because the Honorable Minister for State Education came and said WASC, that's West African Schools Certificate Examination, is going to start between, I think, 4th August to 5th September.
3rd August, actually.
3rd August, okay. 3rd August to 5th. And then the minister himself, Adamu, came out and said, no, the media was misquoting the Honorable Minister of State. Now, I think...
But what is WAEC saying?
Now, WAEC has given a date that this is what we are going to do.
3rd August.
3rd August
exactly.
to 5th of September.
Yeah.
Now, WAEC is not just a Nigeria thing. WAEC is a regional thing. That's West Africa.
Africa.
Now, if other countries are not saying anything and they are agreeing with WAEC, what is Nigeria doing? I understand the complications and the intricacies around those things, but I think the Ministry of Education is not speaking one voice because I think the chairman of the House Committee on Education, that's Professor Julius Ihonvbare.
So yeah, I mean, that's another discussion for another day, but what do you think? Do you think it was the right call or not?
It's a right call because if you say the students should go back to school, this is the right time for the SS3 guys to go and write their WAEC because schools are empty. You can actually just set one student in a hall. If you have a big school, like government schools do have a lot of classes.
The number of invigilators will also
number
come.
of invigilators. You don't even necessarily need that much invigilators because if you say the number of students that are supposed to be in a class is 50, roughly because of COVID-19, you can now put 20 students in a particular class, then put one invigilator in that class.
So and spread that way.
Yeah, exactly. You spread it that way.
So let me just
interact.
let me come to you, Ogene Kefe. So all through this period, of course, even you guys were involved in making available online materials for students to get themselves prepared. One of the what's it called now? One of the arguments is the fact that students are not perhaps ready to write these examinations. Would you say the online teaching platforms that have been available throughout this period of the lockdown is enough or was enough to prepare these students for these examinations?
Thanks for asking that. I would say the period is not enough and the platforms are not enough because it's one thing to introduce technology to people, but then technology can only be as good as the benefits to the people. Now we're looking at two climb now, the elites and then those down in the underserved communities. So far, we launched an online platform so that people can easily go there, access educational materials. But through community engagement, we still realize that there are still many people who can't still access those platforms. So if you want to rush people and say, okay, start this exam because there have been radio programs, there have been online platforms, the truth is there are still thousands, millions of students. We're looking at 1.5 million students who are planning to sit for this exam. So imagine how much have these platforms been able to reach 10% of those ones. So if you're saying they're already based on that platform, I think it will be shaky.
All right, let's quickly go to Yola, where Musa Ishaya is standing by. He joins us via Skype. Musa, so the conversation, of course, as you know, is around whether or not the federal government took a right decision in terms of keeping students or asking that students that go to federal schools will not be partaking in the WAEC, which is coming up sometime next month. But what was your reaction to that when you first heard it?
It's the reaction of every Nigerian. We feel that we're always better than the challenges that we face. Basically, the truth is, considering how we've been able to skip hurdles in other situations, I think we're well equipped. There are many methods we could apply to ensure that this becomes a success. We could, for example, ask the WAEC board to set up more of an objective exam instead of having the objectives and essays. And we write JAMB online, and I'm sure this could be done. This same method could be applied, and other solutions, like my colleague said, we could have a lot of other people set up different. Invigilation doesn't cost more. People don't have to be teachers before they can actually invigilate. You could spread them out in halls and have them do these things without much hassle.
Okay, pretty much. Now we're looking at the fact that if, of course, like the federal government has said, that the students are not going to be part of the examinations. WAEC is not backing down on that. So that means that other countries are going ahead with the examinations. And again, even here in Nigeria, the private schools will also take part in the examinations. So don't you think some set of students will be marginalized?
Yeah, they will be marginalized because the truth is, if the rest of West Africa is ready to do this, it shows that they're prepared. And if they're prepared, what's stopping Nigeria from being prepared? The truth is, you can't. It's not the children's fault. It's not the people's fault, students' fault that they're staying at home now because of the COVID-19. So I think there are a lot of methods. We could have these exams take place in schools and spread it out to halls, and even if it means the stadiums, you could always spread them out, have them work on tablets.
Well,
those
it's
are
good.
extreme measures. And
Yeah, it's good you made mention of the tablet, but I'll come back to you on that. But quickly, Isaac, let me also just ask you, because you just made mention of tablets. Do you think we can extend these examinations because we already have computer-based tests going on in universities and all of that? Do you think that can be employed by WAEC, at least in the Nigerian situation?
Well, I don't think Nigeria is a unique case when it comes to this WAEC-ish, because first and foremost, where there's a will, there's always going to be a way. And as Nigerians, we have that resilience and we have that willpower. If today the Ministry of Education say that this WAEC is going on for both government schools and private schools, we don't have an issue. And to give you an interesting fact, parents that have their wards in private in government schools now are reconsidering withdrawing them and putting them in private schools that are going to write the WAEC. So what is the government going to do in that perspective? Because the average Nigerian man is looking at the way forward. Now, we're not just looking at these guys that are writing this year. Look at the ripple effect it will cause. You're in SS3. There are guys in SS2, SS1, JS3. Now, if you say these guys are not writing now, what happens to the subsequent months? What happens to the infant that is just in nursery school?
So
the ripple effect is much because it will affect virtually everybody in school.
Yeah. So again, the computer-based examinations, do you think it's going to be possible per se?
Yeah, looking at how it is now, it's nothing that it's not impossible. Now, if you look at one of the core values of WAEC, you see that they say innovativeness.
Yeah.
And now, computer-based test is not something that is impossible. Now, you look at their exam, they have, how do I put it now? Right now, there are different open source examination softwares that can be employed to make this possible. Now, these softwares make it easy that you can have OBJs, you can have multiple choice, so everything that you can do in your normal WAEC, it can be replicated. And then when you have to think of what they call it now, security, those platforms still offer that. So I think if the WAEC doesn't want to make that happen, it's still going to be able to work out. The only thing is, it's not something that can be easily employed, because you have to now look at creating awareness, having these children get equipped to these things. Not something just first jammed in, just wake up one day and then start CBT. It took a while, so it will still take a process, which would be really hard to just shift right now, given this state.
The what's it called? The notice might be too short.
Too short.
Indeed. But let me again quickly go back to Skype, where we still have Musa Ishaya. Well, Musa, so looking at the fact that we have pretty much like a short notice for almost everything, what then would be the way forward, apart from the fact that you and also Isaac, suggested that spreading the students in classes would be one of the things that would work?
Yes, the truth is most of the students that write WAEC write JAM. If JAM has been able to achieve these online exams, I don't see any reason why we cannot reform WAEC questions to suit those parameters for these students as well. Because the truth is the whole world works on solutions. Nigeria has to work on its own homegrown solutions to sort out these things. We cannot rely on what other people are doing. We cannot copy what other people are doing. We have to apply the same method we've applied in JAM, and I'm sure it's going to be efficient enough.
All right, let's hope that comes into place. Of course, you're calling from Yola, where we have the Northeast Innovation Hub. Hopefully something good will also come out from that hub that will solve the challenge. But I have to say thank you, Musa Ishaya. You joined us from Yola, the Adamawa State capital. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on the program today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Sure. We'll take a break on the program and we'll be back with more. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We'll still have with us our panelists in the studio, and also we have now joining us via Skype Victor Bamishaye. He joins us from Lodz in Poland. Victor, again, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me, Victor.
Of course. So the conversation has been around opening and closure, or opening and then going back on the decision to open schools and then closing them back. But give us perhaps maybe like a global perspective of what has been done in other countries.
Well, thank you very much, Victor. The truth is that with COVID, it's a new case, and so there's no one size fits all. There are countries that have been able to flatten the curve. For instance, in Europe, and they can, attempt to open schools. And even at that, they have to be very cautious at doing that, because we've seen the model from China and from Hong Kong. Hong Kong right now is having the third wave of coronavirus, and they opened school earlier. Now they have to close it back. Now, because the idea of opening school is not only about the students or the children, because, from scientific reviews that we've seen now, we've seen that it doesn't really affect children much in terms of symptoms. So they could be asymptomatic carriers. But the question is, what about the parents or their family that they go back home to meet? What if those ones have underlying conditions? Those are questions we should ask. And the next thing is, okay, even if you say you want to do boarding house, what about the teachers? And so we find out in US now, in Arizona, for instance, 3 teachers were doing summer classes. They shared the same room, obtained social distancing or physical distancing. They cleaned their hands, wore gloves. But those 3 are down with COVID now, and one of them is dead. So many of us don't know the stuff that are going on with this COVID, and so that's why we have to be cautious. And so the government cannot be too cautious. They are responsible for the lives of many people. Those of us who sit on the sideline can say many things as we want to say, but government has to work with data and models. I know one of the other factors that we have to consider before we open schools is that we do not know what are the post complications. I mean, when someone gets sick and then he gets well, what are the complications of COVID? We don't know now. For instance, with moms, we know children who have moms have the risk of getting infertile over time. They develop orchitis. So, but for COVID, nobody knows yet. And so we really need to be very cautious. And I don't think the government can have too much of an abundance of caution. When it comes to the format of exams, which has been talked about, we must realize that the format of JAMB is different from WAEC. And so that's why the government is being very cautious. So looking at the models from other countries, only countries who have been able to flatten the curve, they say they want to reopen schools.
Well, unfortunately, the cases kind of seem to be rising here in Nigeria because, according to the NCDC, we're having more testing centers. So as a result, even in America, actually, they're having more testing centers. So they're having more cases. They've actually reported the most number of cases in a day. So that apart now, because if the numbers doesn't grow, one of the concerns, like that was mentioned earlier on, is the fact that there's going to be a ripple effect. How do we clear that in the nearest future, quickly?
In the nearest future, to be sincere, Nigerians have to take this seriously. I'm seeing some sort of lackadaisical attitude with the way Nigerians, not the government now, we could talk about the government, but Nigerians themselves are reacting to this COVID. Many people still believe it's a fluke or it does not exist. We must realize it exists and we must follow the laid down protocols. We must engage in physical distancing. We must use masks when we go out. We must, be more hygienic as of now. We need to flatten the curve, and until we do that, there's the hope is dim for the nearest future. So for the nearest future, what we need to focus on now is how do we flatten the curve. And going forward, we hope that vaccines and possibly, cures can be out as soon as possible. It's really devastating what the COVID is doing to the world.
Indeed, the hope is for us to have vaccines and also flatten the curve so that this virus that has ravaged many economies, made people lost a lot of their jobs, and all of that, goes away. But I have to say thank you for joining us again from Lords, I beg your pardon, in Poland, Victor Bamishai, medical doctor.
The pleasure is mine.
Of course. So just in wrapping up now, we're looking for solutions. What do you think can be applied quickly? 30 seconds, pretty much.
I would say right now what the government needs to do is, if you want to have this WAEC, it's not something that just happens immediately, because now they're talking about funds. Looking at having more centers require more invigilators. So if you want to look for a digital way to have this...
What about volunteers?
Now, that's another thing. Because if you go through how the WAEC have their standardization for the grading, they have procedure of where the first stage of coordination, it's step down, examiners, lead. So it's a lot of process if you look at how it is. Now, they're talking about from the release they made recently, they talked about PPEs for all the
invigilators.
So when you look at the honest truth is, it's going to be more expensive to have the exam right now. But then it will be too bad to have the exam whereby we're talking about out of school children, it's not done. And they're talking about separating maybe some people having their exam and then some other people not having. So I don't think it will work if we're saying we want to have an exam. It's a unified exam. It shouldn't be something that one people are having and some are at home not watching. So how would you make me feel? I'm in the public school, my mate is writing, why can't I not write? So I think this is not something that is rushed. They need to look for a way. If they're going to employ digital means, it's something that has to be calculated and then looked how it has to appeal and reach everybody so everyone is satisfied, no one is feeling left behind.
Let's hope that happens. Isaac, do you think, like you said, it's going to require a lot of funds? Do you think we have the funds to fund this quickly?
Well, the chairman, I was talking about that, Professor Julius was saying with proper consultation with the stakeholders in the educational sector, I personally believe where there's a will, there's definitely a way. If WAEC is saying we're going forward with this examination, I don't think Nigeria should be exempted. Because, like he said, if Ghana and every other country is having, and then Nigerian students are lagging behind, what is the ripple effect? What does that tell on the future of Nigeria? Because you're not just talking about this year now. You're talking about...
Yeah, like it's gonna ripple. But like you suggested, do you think we have the funds to, fund the PPEs, the more invigilators, and all of that?
We do. It just takes the willpower. When we have the willpower to do something, we focus on that and we send whatever resources that is required to make this happen. If Nigeria is not doing it, my point is this: let the Ministry of Education speak with one voice. Let's not hear
Let
from
them have a harmonized position.
Let them have a harmonized position. We don't want to hear the Minister of State saying one thing and then the Minister himself saying a contrary thing.
Let's hope that harmonization comes into place, and let's also hope that all the suggestions that were made here, would be put into place so that students don't feel kind of separated from their own mates. But again, I have to say thank you for joining us on the program, Ogene Kefe, as well as Isaac Abraham.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's where we are. We'll take a look at the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week.
This woman's ordeal and how she escaped a baby-making factory in Ogun State begins this week's most viewed videos in 5th place.
I jumped the fence.
It's followed by the debate between lawyers dissecting the intrigues and issues surrounding the arrest of the former acting chairman of the EFCC.
Against Section 37 of the EFCC Act provides that not later than September of every year, the EFCC shall submit its annual report to the National Assembly. Have the reports been submitted? Are they debated? Were suggestions made to correct errors or infractions of the law? These are the points I'm making. Otherwise, it's going to be a vicious cycle.
If an allegation has been made against the chairman of an anti-corruption agency, right, and that this is a government that is attempting or trying to project an image of anti-corruption, and now if the chairman has been accused, it's naturally followed that he should be investigated. Yes, there could be power play, but I don't want to look at the constitution in terms of power play.
Third spot sees officials of LASEMA dispelling fears over the appearance of a white substance that was sighted on Lagos roads. Former NDDC boss joined Nunye leveling scathing allegations against the Minister of Niger Delta, Mr. Godwin Akpabio, comes next.
He came to Port Harcourt 2 days after the inauguration. He said the first thing I should do is to make sure I change the dollars. I should remove Mr. Kaltungo from being legal and send him on compulsory retirement.
While for the third week running, the video detailing the arrest of Nigerian internet fraudster Hush Puppy in Dubai by the Interpol takes first.
Well, there you go. Those were the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. However, if the one you wanted to see wasn't there, just go to our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/channelsweb. Watch the video and even share it with your friends and family. You can even add your photos to the list. But that's where we wrap it up on this edition of the program. Don't forget, keep washing your hands, maintain social distancing, and as well as other guidelines that have been shared by the NCDC. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.